Hey there! Tonight, we're going someplace old. Older than the castles and knights, older than the kings and their torches, older even than the stories carved on faded parchment. We're walking back to an age of iron, sweat, dust, and discipline. Back to the world of the Roman legion, though not the glamorous one with glorious battle cries and shining armor you've seen in movies. No. We're visiting the quieter version, the slower one, the one filled with repetition, routine, and the endless sound of sandals grinding against stone. So, settle in. Lie down. Let your breathing soften. Imagine a long, flat road stretching forward into the heat of the horizon. Imagine dust rising in gentle clouds with each step, soft, warm, and dry enough to cling to your skin. Imagine the faint clatter of metal buckles, the quiet shifting of gear, the sound of 1,000 men marching together at the same steady rhythm. This is where our story begins, not with emperors or generals, but with a single soldier, someone young, anonymous, tired. Someone who carried the empire not like a hero, but like a machine. Tonight, you are not a spectator. Tonight, you are the soldier. Feel the weight slide onto your shoulders. Feel the air dry your lips. Feel the quiet, persistent fatigue of a life spent walking to places you've never heard of. This is the Roman legionary. A life not of triumph, but of dust, repetition, and the steady beat of marching feet. Let's start at the beginning. Picture yourself in a crowded town square. Maybe it's Italy. Maybe it's some small settlement in Gaul. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are young, 18, maybe 20, and your future feels like a narrow alleyway with no doors. Work is scarce. Food is never enough. Your hands are already calloused from farm labor, but the farm will never be yours. All around you, banners flap lazily in the breeze. A few grizzled veterans stand beside a table, their armor dented and their faces hard. A recruiting officer walks down the line, his eyes sharp and calculating. Not cruel, but not kind either. He is judging, measuring, selecting. Your heart beats slowly, not from fear, but from resignation. Food, pay, a chance for land. That's all you're looking for. You aren't joining for glory. You're joining because you have no other options, and the state knows it. You step forward when your name, barely more than a syllable, gets called. The officer lifts your chin to check your teeth, your eyes. He presses his thumb into the muscle of your arm. He isn't checking how strong you are. Rome doesn't need wrestlers. Rome needs endurance. Rome needs mules. And today, you pass the test. The viaticum jingles into your hand, a handful of coins meant to feed you until you reach your assigned post. Most recruits spend it quickly. One last warm meal, one last cup of wine, one last night before the long years ahead. You drink slowly that night, savoring the last simple comfort you will know for a while. The wine tastes bitter, but warm, familiar. You don't know it yet, but from tomorrow onward, most drinks will taste like vinegar. When morning comes, you swear the sacramentum, the sacred oath. You raise your right hand, and in that moment, your life stops belonging to your town, your family, or even yourself. Your life becomes state property, a tool of the empire, a body the emperor can move across the map like a game piece, a soldier of the legion. And then the real work begins. Arriving at the training camp feels like entering a different world. Gone are the lazy rhythms of village life. Here, everything has structure, order, and purpose. The air smells of sweat, leather, and the faint metallic tang of armor rubbed against sand. You learn the first lesson quickly. The Roman army does not train you to fight. It trains you to endure. Your first task isn't swinging a sword. It's learning how to walk, not casually, not leisurely, but at a precise pace. 20 miles in 5 hours, carrying a heavy load, without breaking formation. You march over gravel until your feet blister. You march over hills until your thighs burn. You march in the cold, in the heat, in the rain. Not to reach a place, but to break you down and rebuild you. Your training weapons are cruel. The shield they hand you is heavier than a real one, woven thick to strengthen your arm. The wooden sword is double the weight of actual steel. You stand before a wooden stake, the palace, a crude post carved and scarred from hundreds of recruits before you. This is your opponent. Not glamorous, not heroic, not dramatic, just a post. And you strike it, again and again. Thrust, recover. Thrust, recover. The rhythm becomes the drumbeat of your day. Your arms shake, your shoulders throb, sweat runs into your eyes. And then there's the centurion. He walks behind the line carrying the vine staff, a symbol of leadership and of correction. You feel the sting of it on your back when your shield dips even slightly. You never show pain. You never flinch. You strike the palace again. Each strike is a small surrender of your individuality, replaced by the unyielding rhythm of the legion. Your hands blister, split, bleed, and slowly form calluses. Your muscles ache in ways you didn't know possible. But each day, something changes. Your steps become steady. Your strikes become faster. Your breathing becomes controlled. You are being shaped, not into a warrior, into a cog, a component, a piece of the unstoppable Roman machine. Training breaks you, but not to punish you. It breaks you so you will not break when the real march begins.
You finish training just as the seasons begin to shift, maybe toward the cooler months, maybe toward the heat. Time starts to blur. What matters now is that you're no longer a recruit. The bruises on your shoulders have faded to yellow. The calluses on your palms are thick, and the centurion has stopped striking you quite so often. That's how you know you've passed. And then the quartermaster hands you your real equipment. It comes in pieces. Armor first. If you're unlucky, or perhaps lucky, depending on who you ask, you are issued lorica hamata, chainmail armor made of thousands of tiny interlinked rings. It feels cool at first, shining like dull silver. But once you lift it, the weight drags down on your chest and shoulders. 20 pounds of iron pressing on your ribs, bouncing with every step, biting into your collarbone. If fate assigns you lorica segmentata, the famous banded armor of plates and straps, things are not easier. The plates pinch your skin. The leather straps need constant adjustment. Every morning becomes a small ceremony of tightening buckles and retying cords before the day's march begins. You breathe in slowly. The air feels heavier with the armor on, like each inhale is a tiny battle. But this is only the beginning of your burden. The irony of the Roman army is that you, the foot soldier, carry more weight than the cavalry, more than the officers, sometimes even more than the pack animals. You are nicknamed one of Marius's mules, and for good reason. They give you a T-shaped pole, the furka, and you realize immediately that the pole is not a tool, it's a punishment. Everything you own must be tied to it and carried on your shoulder. A clay cooking pot, a wooden bowl, a pickaxe for cutting stubborn roots, a small saw, a heavy shovel, stakes for the nightly camp, a flask of water, 3 days' worth of grain, your wool cloak, scratchy and always slightly damp, a spare tunic, if you're lucky. You lift the pole onto your shoulder and your knees almost buckle. 60 pounds, maybe 70, and that's without your armor, without your pack, without your shield. Your body learns quickly that pain is simply part of the uniform. Then come the sandals, the collegae. Innocent looking at a distance, but cruel in practice. The leather is thick, stiff, unyielding, and the soles are studded with dozens of iron hobnails, meant for traction and longevity. They ring against stone roads with every step, a metallic rhythm that will follow you for years. In winter, cold creeps through the open design of the sandals until your toes feel carved from ice. In summer, dust works its way into the straps, rubbing the skin raw. You learn tricks to survive, stuffing wool into the toes, soaking the leather for long marches, adjusting the laces a dozen times a day. You look around and realize that every soldier is doing the same, tightening, shifting, readjusting. The empire didn't build its power on comfort. It built it on the backs of men who carried their homes, their tools, their food, and their future on a single pole. When you finally take your first step fully geared, you understand why so many recruits wash out. You are not just a soldier. You are a walking caravan, a laborer, a mule. The morning trumpet sounds. There is no easing into the day. You wake instantly, heart steady, body prepared by months of routine. The centurion gives a short command. The line forms, shields left, spears right, packs adjusted, furka lifted. The serpent of men begins to move. You walk. And when you think you've been walking a long time, you walk some more. Roman roads are marvels of engineering, strong, straight, durable. That's wonderful for history books. But for you, walking them day after day, it is a quiet kind of torture. The straightness offers no distraction, no curve, no bend, no surprise. Just a road slicing across the landscape like a scar. Each step sends a vibration up through your hobnailed sandals, into your feet, up your shins, up your back. The weight on your shoulders shifts with the rhythm, digging into muscle. Your hands ache from gripping your shield. Sweat gathers under your armor, sliding down your ribs in thin, itchy rivulets. The dust is constant, a cloud stirred by hundreds of men walking in unison. It coats your face, your tongue, even your eyelashes. You try to drink from your water skin, but water alone spoils quickly. So you drink paska, a mix of water and sour wine or vinegar. It's acidic, sharp on the tongue, but it cuts the bacteria and keeps you hydrated. You grow used to the taste. Eventually you crave it the way your body craves rest. The line stretches for miles, a long, shimmering chain of helmets under the sun. You don't talk much. Talking wastes breath. Instead, you settle into a trance. Your eyes on the back of the helmet in front of you, your mind drifting into soft, dull thoughts. Step. Clack. Step. Clack. Step. Sometimes you look out at the horizon and swear it's not getting closer. Sometimes you look down and think only about the next footprint. Sometimes you find yourself counting your steps, losing track and starting again, the numbers melting into meaningless sounds. Rain turns the road into a slick mess. Heat turns your armor into an oven. Cold makes your fingers stiff and your sandals cut deeper into numb skin. But you keep moving, because stopping isn't an option. A man who falls out of formation gets kicked by the soldier behind him. If he collapses, he's left behind. Rome does not wait for the weak. You learn to adjust your breathing so your chest rises against the armor. You learn to shift your weight to spare your blisters. You learn that pain has layers, and that after a few hours, it becomes an old familiar companion. The march is not about speed. It's about endurance. About breaking down resistance until the body moves simply because the mind no longer bothers to protest. By midday, your tunic sticks to your back. By evening, your shoulders feel like carved from stone. But still, you walk.
When the horn finally sounds, signaling the end of the march, you expect, perhaps even hope, that the day is ending. That you will be allowed to drop your gear, roll your shoulders, stretch your aching legs, and simply breathe. But a Roman soldier's day never ends when his feet stop moving. The moment the marching line halts, the camp begins. Every night, no matter the weather, no matter the distance traveled, no matter how exhausted you are, the legion builds its own fortress. A miniature city that rises from nothing and will disappear again by dawn. You don't get to rest. Not yet. Not for a long while. The Optio shouts the order. You drop your heavy pack, but you do not sit. You unfasten your shovel and your pick. And you join the line of men walking toward the perimeter. The layout of the camp never changes. Rectangular, precise, measured out like a geometric ritual. The Romans are masters of repetition. By the end of your first year, you could build a camp blindfolded. First comes the trench, the fossa. You dig it with your shovel, your hands numb, your back screaming. The soil sprays upward in thick clumps. Wet earth if it has rained, dry, chalky dust if the sun has baked the ground. Your muscles tremble, but you keep cutting into the earth again and again, falling into the mindless rhythm of the march, just in a different direction. Around you, hundreds of men work in silence. Only the scrape of metal on earth, the thud of dirt hitting piles, the grunt of exertion. Next, you pile the earth onto the inside rim, forming the agger, the rampart, high enough to slow an enemy, high enough to act as a wall. The camp is never just a place to sleep. It is always a fortress. Rome builds protection before it builds comfort. Then you carry sharpened wooden stakes, volley, one by one, heavy, awkward pieces of wood that dig into your palms. You drive them into the top of the rampart, creating a wall of jagged points. A simple defense, but devastating to anyone who tries to climb it. By the time the perimeter is complete, sweat drips from your hair and soaks your tunic. Your arms feel like they are made of lead. Your face is smeared with dirt. But there is still more to do. Inside the camp's walls, order takes shape. The tents come next, papilio, made of thick leather that never seems to fully dry. Each tent must be laid out with exact spacing. The conturbinium, the group of 8 men who share the tent, works together. You drive the tent pegs, you lift the center pole, you pull the ropes tight. When it stands, it looks identical to every other tent in the row. Order is everything. Uniformity
is survival. You look down at your hands. They are blistered, dirty, nicked with small cuts from the shovel blade. And this is only the work of a single evening. And when the tents are finally raised, the camp is still not finished. Now comes the routine of maintenance, small chores that nibble away at any remaining strength. You sit on a wooden stool, or sometimes just on a rock, and begin the tedious task of cleaning your armor. Sand and oil, rubbed in small circles, scraping away rust and dirt. The iron is temperamental. Leave it unattended for too long, and it blooms with rust. Delicate at first, then destructive. Next are the sandals. You check the straps for wear. You rub down the leather with animal fat. You lift your feet, inspecting the soles. The hobnails always loosen. Always. You hammer them back into place using a small metal stud, or even a rock. The sandals must be perfect, because if they fail, you fail. Your stomach growls. It is time to eat. Dinner is not served to you. Dinner is not cooked for you. Dinner is work. Each conturbanium is issued grain, unmilled, coarse and heavy. You carry it back to the tent and begin grinding it with the small portable millstone. The two stones scrape together, producing a gritty, uneven flour. Your arms ache. Your hands vibrate from the grinding. Eventually, you mix the flour with water and cook it over a small fire. The result is pulse, a thick porridge with the flavor of wet grain and smoke. Sometimes, if fortune is generous, you add a bit of cheese or herbs, but most nights you eat the same thing. Warm, bland, heavy. It fills your stomach. It does not satisfy your tongue. You eat because you must march again tomorrow. Some of the men laugh softly. Some complain about the rocks in the ground. Some say nothing, closing their eyes between bites, letting exhaustion settle into their bones. You wash your bowl with a handful of sand and a trickle of water. Everything is washed this way. Water is precious. Sand is not. When the stars finally appear overhead, shimmering faintly above the leather tents, you feel the weight of the entire day pressing down on your eyelids. Every muscle aches. Not sharply, but in a dull, deep throb, the kind of tired that seeps into the soul. But the day is not quite over. There is always the chance of watch. A soldier's life is ruled by the schedule of the night watches. If your conturbanium is assigned the first watch, you must stand guard along the perimeter. The cold bites at your fingers. The darkness stretches out forever, broken only by the glow of dying campfires. Sounds drift in the distance. Animals, wind, sometimes nothing at all. If you have the later watches, second, third, or fourth, you try to sleep before your turn. But sleep is fragile in a Roman camp. The tent is cramped. 8 men shoulder to shoulder, feet overlapping, armor hung on pegs above your heads. The smell of sweat, leather, and damp wool fills the space. You grow used to it, eventually. Or you stop noticing it. You lie on your straw mat, feeling the stiffness in your back. You close your eyes, you drift just on the edge of unconsciousness, and then the horn sounds again. It is your watch. You rise without complaint. You wrap your cloak around you, you grip your spear, and you stand staring into the darkness, listening to the wind rustle through distant trees. Hours pass slowly. Time drips like syrup. Your legs feel rooted in the earth. Your mind floats between wakefulness and dreams. When your watch finally ends, you stumble back to your tent, collapse on your mat, and sleep. For whatever remains of the night drops over you instantly, heavy and dreamless. And before you know it, the trumpet sounds. The gray morning light leaks through the tent flap. A new day has begun. Another march awaits. Another camp to build. The cycle never changes. And this repetition, this endless rhythm of march, dig, eat, sleep, is what shapes the Roman army into a machine. A machine of tired men, but a machine nonetheless. And so, the march continues. Long roads, dusty air, and the soft, rhythmic crunch of Caligula's sandals pressing into the earth. But now, in this part of the soldier's life, we focus on something even more revealing. The routine. The repetitive, almost meditative pattern that fills the days of a Roman legionary. Because although battles are what shape history books, routine is what shaped the soldiers themselves. The routine of obedience. The Roman army ran on obedience the way a heart runs on a steady beat.